Exposed. How a hidden talent became a life-changing executive threat for 10,000 career dreamers. The sun pierced the morning mist, illuminating the gleaming floors of the high-rise office building Kevin called his workplace. Day after day, armed with mops and buckets, he swept away remnants of yesterday, both literally and metaphorically. But behind the facade of a janitor was a man with dreams larger than the glass towers around him. Kevin, a 34-year-old father of two, wanted more for his children than the hand-me-downs of their modest upbringing. As he mopped, he often let his imagination drift to better lives filled with laughter, adventure, and security for his family. He remembered the lessons from his childhood, the values instilled in him by parents who worked tirelessly just to make ends meet. Hard work and perseverance were vital in their humble neighborhood, and they ran through his veins like an electric current. But there was something beneath the surface, an extraordinary talent he had honed in silence. Each night while collecting trash and cleaning upscale offices, he overheard snippets of conversations, corporate secrets whispered in boardrooms. He was the silent observer, gathering insights like breadcrumbs, unknowingly preparing himself for a life he hadn't thought imaginable. But one fateful evening, while cleaning an office, he stumbled upon a confidential folder left open on a polished desk. A scandal was festering, a plan to downsize that would displace over 10,000 employees, shattering lives and tearing apart families. A shudder ran through him. The friends and neighbors he grew up with meant everything to him. Should he remain silent, protecting his own fragile finances, or risk it all to expose this travesty? As his heart raced, the weight of his decision hung heavy in his chest. Kevin saw himself at a crossroads, two divergent paths stretching before him. On one, he'd secure a meager paycheck and safety for his own family. The other promised a fight for integrity, a chance to save countless others. What was loyalty, he mused, if it meant turning a blind eye to injustice? Tension tightened as Kevin wrestled with his conscience. His older brother, a war veteran who had taught him about loyalty and duty, would see silence as the highest virtue. But Kevin felt a fire igniting within him, urging him to become the voice for those who couldn't speak for themselves. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With his resolve strengthening, Kevin decided to speak out. The backlash was swift and piercing. He was branded a traitor, a turncoat. Friends turned away, and even his brother confronted him, their shared history thick with unspoken resentments. But as Kevin stumbled through the repercussions, he noticed people beginning to rally behind him, whispers of solidarity echoing through the streets. The moment drew near when his fight could lead him into a secretive boardroom, the golden gate of opportunity that had once seemed unattainable. Here lay the final choice: amplify his fight for justice or retreat into the safety of his old life. As the stakes rose higher, an unmistakable question loomed in his heart: would he reclaim his family's future, or would the shadow of corporate greed snuff out his spark before it ignited change? The answer felt just out of reach, waiting for him to grasp it if he dared. Kevin stared at the wall like it was a confessional. The tension in his chest felt sharper than a knife. He knew the risks that arose when secrets were laid bare, and he had become the unwitting exposer of a corporate monster. He could still hear the echo of his brother's disbelief, the way his eyes had flashed with betrayal. For a moment Kevin had felt utterly alone. But then he remembered the faces of his co-workers, their weary smiles and quiet determination. They were counting on him now. With each passing day, Kevin found strength in that collective hope. The whispers of solidarity stirred something deep within him, a newfound purpose. That fire he felt inside wasn't just for his family. It was for a community that deserved more than empty promises and corporate greed. But now he had to step up in ways he had never anticipated. He made a plan. Kevin crafted a speech because words had power, especially when strung together with passion. He practiced in front of the mirror, thumping his chest like a warrior preparing for battle. The words were like lightning bolts of conviction as he repeated them over and over, visualizing the moment when he would stand before the boardroom and finally confront the decision-makers face to face. But as the day approached, doubt crept in like a fog. What if they dismissed him? What if they retaliated in ways he hadn't foreseen? He thought about the security of his janitorial job, the predictable paycheck that kept dinner on the table for his 2 children. Could he really risk everything for a fight that might not even end in victory? That night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to his kids' soft breaths. Images of brighter futures danced in his mind, dreams he wanted for them. He started to imagine the life outside the office, where they could roam freely and laugh without worry. In that moment he realized this was not just about him anymore. It was about his children, their future, and the model he wanted to set as their father. The next morning Kevin arrived at the office earlier than usual. He quietly moved through the empty halls, holding on to a determined silence. With every stroke of the mop, he felt more confident. He was tenderly wiping away the past, sweeping aside the debris of complacency and fear. Today was different. Today was the day he would stop being just an observer. As he walked to the back of the building, he noticed a small gathering of colleagues whose faces had shifted from sorrow to cautious determination. They eyed him, expecting him to say something meaningful, something worthy of the risk they were all gearing up to take. Kevin's heart raced. Today he started, his voice trembling but firm, is the beginning of something huge. He saw their eyes widen, hope mingling with nervous anticipation. We are not just janitors, we are voices. We are more than what they think we are. The words flowed like a river as he spoke, his passion igniting the air, and then it hit him, the moment crystallized. The decision was no longer his alone. This was a community of dreamers willing to fight against the looming shadows. They were transforming this quiet revolution into a battle nobody expected. But what would happen when they entered that boardroom? What raw truths would emerge in the face of ruthless executives? Awaiting the answer was like a breath held in anticipation as they prepared their plan. A figure emerged from the shadows, someone who could tip the balance of power. Kevin's heart sank at the sight, because he recognized the man instantly. Would he become an ally or another adversary? Kevin's breath hitched in his throat as he locked eyes with the man who had stepped out of the shadows. It was Dan, the former operations manager. He once admired, now a ghost of his old self. The corporate suits had pushed him out, leaving him with the scars of betrayal, much like Kevin felt now. Dan, Kevin whispered, apprehension swirling in his gut. Surprised to see me? Dan replied, a flicker of a smirk dancing on his lips. He was dressed casually, a stark contrast to the polished executives that roamed these halls. I heard whispers about you standing up to the board. Looks like you're stirring a pot I've been trying to simmer down since I left. As Kevin absorbed Dan's presence, the dynamics of the gathering shifted. His co-workers looked uneasy, all too aware of Dan's past with the company. Listen, Dan continued, stepping closer, I know what you're trying to do and I have to admit it's got potential. But you can't do this alone. You need more than just passion, you need leverage. What do you have in mind? Kevin asked, skepticism tainting his tone. He was prepared for betrayal, but something in Dan's eyes hinted at a different story. I spent years collecting documents, files that expose the truth about this company. I'd love to share them, but trust isn't freely given in this world. You'll have to earn it, and it won't come without risk. Kevin's pulse quickened. This was the kind of information he needed. But the thought of trusting someone he once looked up to sent shivers down his spine. Why help us now? Kevin demanded, his voice sharper than he intended. Because it's about time someone put the screws to them, Dan replied, passion igniting behind his words. I never had the courage to do it for myself. But watching you has made me feel like I can help someone else try. Kevin stood in silence, weighing Dan's offer. The murmurs of his colleagues buzzed around him, their anxious faces urging him to make a decision. This was a monumental risk, not just for himself but for all of them. If they were to take the plunge, there wouldn't be any going back. He could feel the weight of their hope on his shoulders. Suddenly, the thought of inaction crushed him. All right, Kevin finally said. Give us what you have. But remember, if you're here for your own agenda, this ends badly for everyone. Dan's gaze softened, and Kevin felt cautiously optimistic. So far, hope had been nothing but a fragile thread. But today, standing with a community and a possible ally, It felt like they might stitch it into something stronger as they strategized their next steps. Kevin realized the monochrome world he had grown used to was splashing with color. There was fire in their hearts, at least for now. But deep down, doubts clawed at him. Could they truly hold their ground against an entire corporation? As they wrapped up their meeting, a shadow loomed over the room, and Kevin's heart sank again. The higher-ups could already be aware of their murmurs. "Let us be quick," Kevin urged, urgency edging his voice. They needed to be prepared for the backlash that was surely coming. The following days faded into a blur of late-night discussions and whispered strategizing. Just as they began to feel a sense of progress, a heavy knock echoed against the office door. The air stilled. When Kevin opened it, he was met not just with one intimidating figure but a trio of corporate executives, faces taut with disapproval. "Mr. Richards, we need to talk," one of them began, leaving an unsettled silence hanging between them. Heart racing, Kevin faced the impending storm. Would this be the breaking point for their uprising? Or the end of everything he'd fought for? His voice faltered slightly, but the fire within him wouldn't flicker out just yet. "I have something to say too." The executives didn't waste time. They pressed into the office, filling the room not just with their presence, but with an intimidating aura. Kevin could almost see the weight of their authority choke the air. The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. "Let us not play games," one of them said, a sharp, cold edge to his voice. "Your little uprising is making waves, and we're here to remind you of your place." Kevin took a deep breath, steeling himself against the rising apprehension. "That's just it," he replied, sensing the encouragement of his colleagues behind him. "I'm done knowing my place when it means being pushed around." The executives exchanged glances, the flicker of surprise evident on their faces. They hadn't expected Kevin to stand his ground, certainly not in the way he was. But he's seen too much suffering, too many people crushed under the heel of this corporate machine, and the veil had been lifted. He knew now that speaking up could mean everything. "You don't understand the repercussions of your actions," another executive interjected, a hint of frustration boiling beneath his calm facade. "Do you want to risk everything, your career, your future?" Kevin's heart raced. Every word felt like a hammer hitting the anvil of their potential rebellion. "No," he said firmly, "I want to risk it for a future where we're not just cogs in a wheel. If I have to step up, I'm ready to fight." The silence was deafening. Kevin could feel the collective breath of his coworkers holding tight as they awaited a response. Would they support him, or would this be yet another failure that would echo through their lives? The lead executive took a step forward, tone flattening. "You think you're ready for this? You think a few brave words will spark some kind of change? We have the power to make this all disappear." "Disappear?" Kevin challenged, his voice rising. "You think that silence will keep us in line? That intimidation will make us bow and yield? Not anymore." He saw Dan shifting slightly in the back, a look of approval glimmering in his eyes. That glance fueled Kevin's fire. He looked back at the executives, determination surging through him. "If you think we're just going to roll over and accept this, you're wrong. We've had enough of secrets and betrayal. It's time to bring everything into the light." The executives bristled, caught off guard by the wave of conviction. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mr. Richards," one of them warned, stepping closer. "Then let us make it a fair game," Kevin shot back. "I'm ready to expose the truth. If you have nothing to hide, why worry?" The silence that followed felt electric, charged with a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. His coworkers, once anxious, now stood taller, shoulders squared. What started as doubt transformed into a united front. "We know you've been playing us." A voice from the back, the usually timid Sarah, spoke up, shaking a little but resolute. "We have the power of numbers. You can't intimidate all of us." An uncomfortable shuffle ran through the executives as their confident demeanor began to waver under the weight of collective resolve. Kevin sensed it. This was their moment. But just as he thought they might finally break, one executive spoke again, measured and unervingly calm. "This isn't over. You'll regret this, Kevin." With that, they turned and left, slamming the door behind them. An uneasy quiet followed, the remaining tension lingering like the final notes of a harsh symphony. Kevin turned back to his team, pulse racing, but not just from fear. It was triumph. They had taken the first step. No longer passive players, but active participants in their futures. But as hope surged in the room, questions loomed large. What would happen next? Would they be able to gather the evidence Dan promised? And more importantly, would they truly stand together against the repercussions that were likely to come? He gazed around at the faces he saw every day. They were more than co-workers, they were comrades in this newfound fight. But the real work was just beginning. Let us regroup. We have to strategize and get Dan's files, Kevin urged, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders as they began to disperse. A renewed sense of purpose ignited in their hearts. Yet the unnerving feeling of vulnerability pressed against Kevin's chest as he wondered, had they just ignited a wildfire they couldn't control? A chill ran down his spine. Some battles were only just beginning. Kevin gathered everyone in the break room, the tension still crackling in the air like static electricity. Faces that had been weary and strained just moments ago now shimmered with determination. He glanced around at each colleague, seeing the fires of rebellion igniting deep within their eyes. These were people he had worked alongside for years, but now they felt like a family forged in the heat of adversity. All right, let us talk strategy, he said, his voice steady. We need to secure that information Dan has. It's our leverage. Without it, we're just empty threats. Dan shifted uneasily, his brow furrowed. I gave you the last of my files, but the crucial evidence is in the admin office. I can't access it without the proper credentials. Then we need a plan to get it, Kevin replied, heart racing at the idea of going against the very system they needed to topple. The group murmured in agreement, a sound that felt like the stirring of a dormant beast. Sarah stepped forward, her resolve emboldened. What if we create a distraction? While a couple of us create a scene in the lobby, others could slip in and grab the files. Kevin nodded, her courage a jolt of energy. That could work. We need to be quick and discreet. And so they began crafting their plan, the tensions of corporate life morphing into something exhilarating. They buzzed with urgency. Ideas were thrown back and forth, interspersed with laughter and supportive nudges. The sense of camaraderie filled the room, lifting the weight of fear. Hours ticked by as each colleague took their role seriously. Once skeptical of the power of unity, they now embraced it wholeheartedly. Kevin assigned tasks meticulously, ensuring every angle was covered. In that moment he recognized the strength of their bond, the collective desire for integrity, and their newfound potential to effect change. Yet, buried deep within him was a gnawing concern. Still, that warning echoed in his mind. The executives had left him with, "You'll regret this." What if they found out what they were planning? What if things backfired? Hey Kevin, Dan's voice broke his reverie. What happens if they retaliate? We might not be ready for the fallout. Kevin nodded, his heart heavy. I know. But if we don't take this step now, we might never have the chance again. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone out there too. We owe it to them. As the sun dipped lower in the sky outside, signaling the approach of evening, the group decided on a mission date. Empowered, they all exchanged determined glances. They would face their fears together, come what may. The following morning brought clear skies, a distorted reflection of the storm brewing within the company. It was time to put their plan into action. Kevin couldn't shake the electric charge running through him. It felt thrilling and terrifying all at once. They met at the front of the building before splitting off into their assigned roles. Kevin took a deep breath as he approached the main doors, his stomach a knot of anxiety and excitement. This was the beginning of a new chapter, the first step towards reclaiming their voices, their lives. Here goes nothing, he whispered to himself, pushing past the threshold and into the belly of the beast. As their plan unfolded, an unexpected shadow loomed over the building, a figure he recognized. One of the executives was pacing just outside, eyes scanning the crowd with unsettling precision. Kevin's heart dropped. Had they been tipped off? The stakes had just changed. With his pulse pounding, he had to make a choice. Would he push forward with the mission or back down now that danger was closing in? The answer felt like a storm brewing deep inside, ready to break free. They had to proceed, but what would the fallout mean? Would their fight for justice lead to glorious triumph or devastating defeat? Kevin's mind raced as he weighed his options. He could see the tension in the air around him, thick as fog. His colleagues were buzzing with expectation just a few feet away, unaware of the ominous presence that lingered at the cusp of their plans. Could they really go through with it? Did they even have a chance? He straightened up, shaking off the dread coursing through him. All right, he murmured under his breath, we can't turn back now. He stepped back into the lobby. The cold air brushed his skin, sharpening his senses. It hit him his role was pivotal. As the distraction, he needed to summon all his energy, to channel every ounce of charisma he had. He scanned the room for Sarah and Dan, signaling them with a nod. The plan was set in motion. Let us give them a show they won't forget. Kevin shouted, stepping into the spotlight. He raised his arms, his excitement spilling out like a tidal wave. Who's ready to have some fun? His colleagues, caught off guard but emboldened by his enthusiasm, erupted in cheers. They surged forward, forming a crowd around him, laughter and banter filling the space that had moments ago felt drenched in foreboding silence. Behind him he spotted Daniel slipping away, his heart pounding as he approached the rear entrance leading to the administration office. Dan's resolve was just as palpable as the crowd's energy. Alongside him, a few others swept in, glancing back at Kevin as they blended into the chaos of laughter and applause. More noise. Get louder. Kevin barked, feeling the thrill of the moment. If they could keep the attention on him, maybe Dan and the others could succeed. As the chants grew, the executive's eyes narrowed, darting from Kevin to the doorway. He was clearly agitated, a predator sensing the tension in the air. Just then, Kevin locked eyes with him, a fleeting recognition between adversaries. In that moment, a tiny flicker of hope ignited within Kevin. He was here to take back control and so were his people. Suddenly the executive pulled out his phone and Kevin's heart sank. Did he just call for backup? Panic stirred among the crowd. But Kevin refused to let it derail him. He pushed through the waves of doubt, adopting a more animated demeanor. Who here believes in justice? Hands shot up. Voices erupted in approval. With each second that slipped by, the thrill of the impending operation harmonized with the rising anxiety. Inexplicably, he felt invigorated. Together we can stand against whatever comes our way. Cheers went up, almost deafening. It felt like they were all standing at the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. But even amidst the uproar, cold fingers of concern gripped his heart. What if Dan couldn't get the files? What if the executives were already alerting security? Time stilled for a moment, the world around him blurring into insignificance as he focused on Dan's progress. Then, like a strike of lightning, uncertainty hit him hard. If they succeeded, they could change everything. But if they failed, it was only a matter of time before they faced the consequences, the wrath of the executives, their jobs, their futures hanging in the balance. And as Kevin felt the electrifying tension in the air, he couldn't help but wonder, what would they be willing to risk? Just as he was about to galvanize the crowd further, the shimmering hope flickered, replaced by a spine-tingling realization. The executive had begun moving towards them, determination etched on his face. A loud crackle of communication echoed through the crowd, his voice unmistakable. Cut it out, he barked, fingers stroking the bracelet on his wrist that might signal security. Kevin's heart raced. Now everything hung by a thread. Would they finish this? Or would fear snuff out the flames of their rebellion? They could either push forward in defiance or collapse right there under the pressure. With no time to lose, Kevin had to make a split-second decision. Could he lead them through this storm? Or would darkness swallow all their hopes? The answer lay just within reach, but the cost might be too high to bear. The executive's eyes flared. Kevin felt the air grow thick, almost suffocating. He clamped his teeth, forcing determination into his voice. Do you believe in standing together? The crowd roared back, voices merging into an anthem of defiance. For a moment, the weight of what lay ahead faded, leaving only that collective spirit. But that moment shattered as the executive took another step forward, his menacing composure contrasting sharply with the joy-filled atmosphere. This isn't a game, he barked, his eyes sweeping across the room. I'll have you all out of here in minutes. Fear rippled through the group, but Kevin wouldn't let it win. Listen. It's time we stand for what's right. We're tired of living in fear. His voice boomed, each syllable punctured by the fearlessness he summoned from within. The energy shifted. It was palpable. People whispered, glancing at one another, seeking a connection. A young woman near the front stepped forward, her hands trembling, yet she shouted, "We deserve respect. We deserve a voice." Encouragement flowed through the crowd like an electric current, igniting those who had been quiet. One by one they began to speak out, sharing snippets of their experiences, their faces lit with hope and a fierce need for change. Kevin felt his heart surge. The thunder of their shared resolve drowned out the executive's intimidating presence. But just then, an unexpected sound echoed from the hallway. The heavy thump of footsteps approached security. Kevin's chest tightened. He glanced back, nerve endings on fire. Had Dan made it? What if he changed everything? Yet they never got to see the fruits of their rebellion. His gaze flickered over the crowd. Everyone, we need to hold strong. Together we can push through. He caught sight of Sarah and Dan, eyes wide, hearts racing, their determination clear. They were close to a break, but they needed just a little more time. Get ready for anything, Kevin shouted, a leader now rising from uncertainty. He shifted his weight, stepping closer to the executive, a wall of courage against the encroaching fear. The executive clenched his fists, looking increasingly frustrated. You think this will end well? You're causing a major disturbance. We're causing a change. Kevin roared, adrenaline fueling his confidence. You won't silence us any longer. Not today. With that proclamation, an unexpected wave of unity surged forward. As if the crowd had been waiting for permission to release their collective roar. Somehow they felt invincible. They began to move, fronting with a show of solidarity, one body, one voice. The executive faltered, taken back by the sheer force of their determination. In that pivotal moment, everyone shifted, breaking their boundaries, crossing the line into a realm of true rebellion. Yet, in the backdrop, the footsteps of security grew louder, nearing the entrance. Kevin felt his stomach twist. Would they make it? Would Dan get the files? The atmosphere transformed again, shifting from triumphant hope to the stark fear of reality. He scanned the group, all eyes on him. This is our moment, but we need to stay smart. Stay together. Then, just as he prepared to rally them once more, Dan emerged from the back, practically bursting through the crowd, an envelope clutched tightly in his hand. But it wasn't he, just the files. Staring wide-eyed, he mouthed words to Kevin, urgency etched on his face. We have to go. Now. The cheers faltered, replaced by confusion. What did he mean? Was this triumph or disaster? Kevin's heart raced, sweat dripping down his back. The storm was far from over. With barely a breath he shouted, everyone. We need a plan, and we need it fast. The moment of truth is right now. Did they have what it took to finish this? Or would they fall apart just as victory was within reach? Would they unite or scatter under the weight of an uncertain future? Kevin sensed the clock ticking down. What would happen next? Kevin felt the energy around him shift like the stillness before a storm. He locked eyes with Dan, who was panting heavily, the envelope still clenched tightly in his hand. There was a look of urgency mixed with fear. In that moment, clarity hit him. Everyone, Kevin called out, raising his hands to gather attention. Dan's right. We need to move now. This isn't just about speaking out. It's about survival. If we wait too long, we risk losing everything we've built today. Sarah stepped up beside him, her voice steady. Exactly. We can't let fear dictate our next steps. We've shown our strength. Now we have to act before they can silence us. The crowd murmured in agreement, a wave of renewed courage swelling among them. The looming threat of security faded slightly as each person recognized the power they had just begun to unleash. They could no longer linger in the safety of their old routines. This was a fight for everything that mattered to them. Kevin motioned to Dan. What's in the envelope? Is it what we need to take this fight further? Dan tore open the envelope, his fingertips trembling slightly. It's everything, he said, glancing at the documents. Anything they could use against us, all the files showing the corruption, the truth. The crowd gasped, a mix of excitement and hope washing over them. They were right on the edge of something monumental. He could almost taste it. Then let us not waste a moment. Kevin shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. We find a safe route out of here. Share this, and let the world know what they tried to hide. As Kevin spoke, the sound of boots echoed louder in the hallway, like thunder rolling closer. The tension rippled through the audience, now fervent but still on edge. They were at the precipice of a decision, and failure was not an option. What about the executives? Someone shouted from the back of the crowd. The question echoed with worry. What if they chase us? Kevin took a deep breath, letting every ounce of intention shape his next words. We can't let their fear rule us. We're fighting for a cause bigger than ourselves. We make a stand right here, and if we have to run, we'll do it together. We move as one. Sarah's eyes sparkled with conviction as she nodded. We've all been affected by the same forces. We know how they play dirty. They can't silence us if we keep everyone informed. Let us not only escape, let us plan our next steps. With that, a spark ignited in the crowd. Faces lit up with determination. Members began to gather their things, ready to move. But Kevin could see the clock ticking. Time was slipping away. On my count, he shouted over the rising tension. 3, 2, 1, move out. The crowd surged forward, drawing strength from the unity that surged like a living thing. They flowed through the entrances, weaving past the menacing security guards who hadn't yet realized the wave of defiance that was rising against them. But just as they reached the main exit, a loud shout resounded. Stop right there. Kevin whirled around, heart in throat. The executive had recovered, flanked by his guards. An icy wave of fear threatened to drown his resolve, yet the restless crowd pressed on, ready to move. They were at a crossroads. Would they stand their ground or push for freedom against the threat that loomed ahead? Kevin's pulse quickened. The moment required every ounce of his strength. Stay close, he yelled, rallying them once more. But he knew today could either be the day they reclaimed their lives or the day they'd have to run. As they began to push out towards the door, the crowd's collective heartbeat matched his own. There was no turning back now. But would they reach safety, or were they walking into a trap? He took a deep breath and sprinted forward, not knowing if defeat or elation awaited them. Would they overcome the darkness that lay ahead? Would the truth break free? Or would they be overwhelmed? Only one thing was certain. The fight was far from over. Kevin sprinted toward the door. The sound of pounding boots echoed off the walls behind him, a relentless reminder of the urgency they faced. Fear gripped his heart for a moment, but the faces around him fueled his determination. He could see resilience, hope, even defiance. This was more than just about him. It was about everyone who felt silenced, everyone who yearned for change. Push through, he shouted, urging the crowd forward. We can't stop now. They surged ahead, like a wave crashing against an immovable rock. The executive and his guards loomed large, a wall of authority. But Kevin felt the collective heartbeat of the crowd, a rhythm that rose above the threat. There was power in numbers, undeniable strength coursing through their shared purpose. As they reached the exit, Kevin felt a flicker of doubt. Would they truly make it? The guards were closing in. A shiver ran down his spine. But before he could ponder any longer, Sarah shouted, to the right. Their back exit. Without hesitation, he veered toward Sarah. The crowd followed, shoving through the door just as it swung open. They stumbled out into the chilly evening air, the coolness washing over them like a baptism into a new life. Freedom beckoned, but more importantly, they had information that could change the game. Keep moving, Dan urged, glancing over his shoulder. They're right behind us. They raced across the parking lot, the overhead streetlights flickering wildly, casting eerie shadows. Each stride felt like an act of rebellion, each breath a testament to their courage. Kevin's thoughts raced as they reached the edge of the lot. Where to now? He wondered. They needed a plan, a safe place to regroup, but all they had was raw determination. Let us find a place to lay low, Sarah suggested, her voice steady despite the chaos. Our phones, we need to spread the word about what we found. Just then, Kevin's phone buzzed furiously in his pocket. He fished it out, heart skipping a beat as he saw dozens of notifications flooding in. Messages from friends, colleagues. They were asking if he was okay, if they were safe. Someone had already begun to share the events unfolding at the office, the frustration spilling out in a wave of solidarity. Look at this, he called, showing the screen. People are ready to listen. They want to know the truth. A sense of urgency pressed on them. If they didn't act quickly, the executives would bury the documents, erase the evidence, and crush their voices. We need to get to a safe spot, upload everything online, and reach out to the media, Kevin cried, adrenaline coursing through him. Dan nodded, glancing nervously back at the building. The old diner on Maple Street. It's been closed for renovations and no one goes there anymore. We can hold up there. Let us go, Sarah urged, rallying the group. They made a break for it, zigzagging between parked cars, hearts pounding like drums. The diner loomed ahead, its neon sign flickering dimly in the night. As they approached, Kevin could feel the weight of what they were carrying, the truth, the documents, their fledgling hopes and dreams. They reached the door, trembling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Is everyone here? Kevin checked. The crowd nodded, faces lit with resolve, but he noticed a few were lagging behind, glancing back at the shadows moving in the distance. No one gets left behind, he shouted. They spilled into the diner, slamming the door closed behind them. Silence enveloped them, thick and heavy, but outside, the night was alive with uncertainty. They were safe for now, but the battle had just begun. Let us get to work, Kevin said, his eyes gleaming with purpose. This was their chance. Truth was on their side. Would they be able to rally the support they needed? And would their message break through the silence that tried to ensnare them once again? The stakes felt higher than ever. Deep down, he understood the truth was a powerful weapon, but would it be enough to bring down the machine so many felt trapped in? The air in the diner was tense, its faded walls a stark contrast to the vibrant energy radiating from Kevin and his allies. They felt the weight of anticipation, a collective breath held tight as they huddled around the small table stuffed with crumpled documents and a raging desire for change. Okay, everyone listen up, Kevin said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. We can't let today be for nothing. Dan's documents, they're our lifeline. We need to go public, but we have to strategize how we do it right. He saw their determination rising, the flicker of hope igniting like a flame in each of their eyes. We'll upload everything to a secure site first. Then we reach out to local news outlets and social media. We need to make this explosion big enough to ensure they can't sweep it under the rug. Dan nodded. I've got everything organized: financial records, emails, everything that shows how they cut corners and put lives at risk. This is our chance. As they began to sift through the papers, Kevin felt gratitude wash over him. These were his co-workers, people who had been quiet, hidden in the shadows of their workplace. Now they were rising together, united by a shared purpose. He could see it in their faces. They were no longer just janitors or administrative staff, they were warriors fighting for their rights. Then he remembered his family. The image of his children's laughter played like a movie in his mind. They would grow up knowing that their father had stood up for what was right. Tears stung his eyes, but he blinked them away. We do this for them, he thought. Minutes stretched into hours as they worked feverishly, the clatter of keyboards blending with the charged energy that filled the room. With each click, they were crafting a narrative that couldn't be buried or ignored. It felt monumental. Finally, as if on cue, Dan exclaimed, "It's all uploaded. Now what?" The flood of anxiety surged in Kevin's gut. Now we boost the signal. This isn't just a story about one company. It's about all of us. We need everyone to know. Just then Sarah spoke up. We've got local groups who support workers' rights. Let us rally them. They can share the story and help amplify our message. He nodded vigorously. Yes. If we can pull together the community, let them see this is bigger than just us at LL, create the momentum we need. With their plan set into action, Kevin began drafting a heartfelt message, an open letter. He poured his heart into each word, transforming personal struggles into a rallying cry. This is for every worker silenced by fear. We're not alone. As Kevin crafted the message, a sudden knock on the door sent a chill down his spine. What if they've found us? Dan whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. No, Kevin replied. We've come too far not to fight back. He approached the door, heart pounding. Who is it? He called out, trying to sound braver than he felt. But instead of corporate antagonists, it was a group of familiar faces. Local community members, passionate advocates who had caught wind of their struggle. We heard you. We're here to help. One of them exclaimed. Relief flooded Kevin's body. How did you know? We're always listening, the woman replied. We've known about the injustices for a while. We want to support you. With them came a wave of revitalization, as ideas and strategies bounced around the table. Together, they spread the word about the documents. News outlets were quick to respond, eager to tell the story. Soon, Kevin and his team found themselves in the spotlight, speaking out about their experiences, garnering supporters and striking the nerves of people who felt similar oppression. But it wasn't without challenges. Corporate threats loomed, and harassment attempts began trickling in, trying to silence all the voices that were joining their fight. Yet as the pressure mounted, Kevin saw something alive in each of them, an unyielding spirit. One evening, as he reviewed the latest headlines, Kevin felt the pulse of change in every fiber of his being. Thousands of people were rallying around there. The cries for justice echoed in social media, spreading wider than he could have imagined. It culminated in a massive demonstration outside the corporation, filled with voices demanding accountability, a representative of every sector affected by corporate greed. Kevin stood there, focused on the heads of everyone united, and the weight of hope enveloped him. They had begun as janitors, as outsiders, and now they were center stage voice surrounded by advocates, families, children eager for a better future. As he looked around, he realized that their fight wasn't merely about their jobs anymore. It was about humanity, connection, and the essential call for justice. And in that moment, the state of the world felt just a bit brighter. More than anything, Kevin made peace with his decision. He understood that it hadn't simply been about standing up, it was about breaking down the barriers that had silenced them for too long. As the crowd rallied together, emotions surged, and Kevin felt that fire ignite again, pulsing like a heartbeat surging through the air. This was the moment they could really change lives. At the end of the night, as they stood strong amidst the noise, Kevin could see the light of hope growing ever stronger, brighter, and more vibrant than the glass towers that had once seemed so imposing. Everyone cheered in unison, and through the noise, Kevin understood one thing clearly. They had claimed their voices, rediscovered their power, and it was only the beginning of their incredible transformation. As he stood there surrounded by friends and newfound allies, tears of joy streamed down his face. He de-risked everything, and it was all worth it. Now it was your turn. Join the fight. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm with heart. Your engagement matters. Comment below and tell us your reactions and feelings about this unforgettable ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This story deserves to reach many more.